Hi, my name is Jeanette, and I want to thank you for joining me today. Today, I thought I would review Lynette Eason's series, Danger Never Sleeps. It is a 4-book series um, featuring 4 females who are military active, um, are serving in Afghanistan, and it also features in the States, I think North Carolina, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I'd have to go back and look. Um, so while the stories have Afghanistan parts in them, they also take part in the States at times throughout the story, depending on which story, how much of which country is featured. Lynette Eason is an auto-buy author for me. I do not read the back of summaries of the books very often, or if I do, I skim it through because I don't want to know, because I don't want things given away or kind of know where the story's going. I have loved Lynette Eason's books. I've read probably majority of her books, like maybe 80 to 90% of them. And that's just, I love mystery suspense. So that's how I go into these books. So basically, what I know is what I see on the cover, kind of. So, Collateral Damage is book number 1. It features Brooke and Asher as the main characters, and then it has a few side characters. So, this story starts off in Afghanistan, and it starts action right away. Like it opens with a bombing, basically. I did not want to put this book down once I started it. I was just like, I need to know what happens next. I need to know what happens next. Then, so we have the incident of Afghanistan happening, and then all of a sudden it flips to, as I said, I think North Carolina, an incident there where Caden, an FBI agent, is called in to investigate a crime scene. So for a little while there, it's like 2 separate storylines. And I mean, there's things you know as a reader, right? Like they're not going to have 2 separate storylines within one book. That's not going to weave together at some point. So we know that it's going to weave together at some point. But it's also, how is it going to get there? How is this Afghanistan event connected to this North Carolina event? I really hope North Carolina's right because I've said that a few times. So they're trying to figure it out. They're trying to figure out about the bombing. They're trying to figure out about this crime scene. So Brooke and Asher are back in the state, or Brooke is back in the States, meets Asher, and then is working with Asher and Caden to try to figure out what's going on. Well, I suspected who the bad guy was between all the events that were happening and how the 2 events connected, I wanted to be wrong because I liked this guy. But I was wrong. I was right. Like, it was him. And I was sad it was him. But when it was revealed what his reasoning was and how he justified his actions, oh my gosh, it was sickening. I was like, you can't be thinking that's okay, can you? Needless to say, this book is titled correctly, Collateral Damage. That's all I'm going to say. I loved this story, and I could not wait to read the rest of the series. I fell in love with Caden in this book and wanted to know his story and spend more time with him. Now he is one of the secondary characters. So I liked Brooke and Asher, but because I was so focused on the secondary character and just kind of wanted to, get through the scenes quickly to get to his scenes, I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. Now we move on to book number 2. Book number 2 is called Acceptable Risk. This one focuses on Sarah, who is Caden's sister, and Gavin, who is Caden's best friend. So they are Sarah has just had a very traumatic event happen in Afghanistan and is now just returned home. Separate from the bombing in the previous book. So she is now home and has just discovered that her other brother, committed suicide. And it's kind of like, she doesn't think that he did. There's got to be some explanation for it. There's no way he would have done this. So she is trying to recover from her event and trying to investigate. One thing I loved about Gavin is he added humor throughout the tense moments. They'd be sitting in the middle of a tense moment, dealing with something, and he would make this comment, and I would just start laughing. I loved how Lynette was able to add this lighthearted moment in the middle of such tense stuff that was going on. I could not wait, again, to get to know Caden more. I figured, well, he's Sarah's sister. He's got to have a pretty prominent role in this book, and he does. And Sarah's living in his house. So, yes, we get to spend more time with him and get to know. But this wasn't his book, which is fine. I loved this book either way. Sarah, in addition to dealing with everything else, like the immediate now, trying to investigate, trying to come over her trauma, or deal with her trauma, and what possibly is going on around her, she also has a very difficult relationship with her father. And her father is trying to make up for some of his past mistakes, and Sarah's struggling to deal with it. Now, this is understandable. I understand Sarah's side of it, but I feel for the dad who's trying. But obviously we know that things are going to work out in the end. I mean, it's a story. We know that most stories do not end sadly. Most. I mean, some do. So we know that something's gonna, it's kind of, we're gonna figure it out, it's gonna be wrapped up, and hopefully they're gonna be headed on the right track. And that's kind of what happens with Sarah and her father. Things happen, things have happened in the past that we are being told of, then things happen throughout the book. And so by the end, their relationship is improving, but it's not perfect. But they're all headed on the right track, and I was very happy about that. I really enjoyed this story. The suspense kept me guessing on what was going on, why things were happening the way they were happening. So I rated this book 5 out of 5 because I loved this book. Book number 3 of the series is Active Defense. This one features Heather and Travis. Now, Heather grew up in a foster home, so she's kind of learned to deal with things on her own. She's not really had the support system that a lot of people would have. So she has trouble asking for others for help. She has just returned from a tour in Afghanistan and now has a stalker and then gets kidnapped. But is the stalker the kidnapper, or are they two separate things going on? So she's trying to figure this out, but she refuses to ask anybody for help. However, her friends are trying to help. So Travis becomes kind of the main helper to try to find her and help her, teach her that we want to help you. So over the course of the story, she does learn that it's okay to ask for help and accept help from your friends. As the story unfolded, I was like, okay, wait, what? Well, if she's doing that and he's doing that, like, how does that, like, I was so invested at wanting to know and trying to figure everything out ahead of time. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I loved how the friends tried to show Heather over and over again that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to need help and be weak when you're weak. and show that you don't have to be strong all the time. I loved that message of it. By the time I figured out who the villain was, Heather had just figured it out, and they were right there, like, kind of facing her, basically. And I was like, oh, that was a little late. So what's going to happen now? Obviously, things kind of work out. It is a book, after all. But I really enjoyed the story, and it kept me invested. So again, I gave this one 4 out of 5. Now, the final book in the series is called Hostile Intent, and this one features Caden and Ava. Sorry, I had to look at my notes to figure out what her name was. So I mean, I'm now on book 4. I know that Caden hasn't been the prominent figure in all 3 books. I know this is the final book of the series, so it has to be Caden's story, right? There's only 4 males, 4 females. It has to be Caden's story. So I went into this, had such high hopes for the story, because I'd fallen in love with Caden in book 1, loved him in book 2. He was in book 3, but not huge, prominent, like, but he was there. So book 4 was like, okay, I get to know him, spend more time with him, and, you know, everybody else. And so I had high hopes for this book, and I didn't enjoy it as much as I'd hoped. Now, it's probably because I had such high hopes for this book. If I had read this book without reading the other 3 books, and without getting to know Caden in book 1, I probably would have enjoyed this one more, because I probably had built him up in my head. And maybe not, I don't know, because I didn't read it that way, right? So there was definitely the traditional action and expense that I've come to expect in Eason's books. And the plot of having a whole family's murdered, and then everything with the CIA and the Russia component, it was too much for me. I found myself getting a bit confused with all the characters and with all the character name changes. Because, like, witness protection, that type of stuff, that's what I mean about name changes. And I think I don't enjoy reading stories with Russia in it. I never really have. And I don't know. I think maybe the CIA stuff is just kind of over my head. Maybe, I don't know. It's just hasn't been a huge favorite of mine, I guess. I loved that Ava was a strong, capable woman, and smart. Like, smart. Coding at 15, smart. And I love that Caden showed her the respect that she deserved. He didn't try to be the strong, macho male and, here, you just go back there and I'll do everything. He respected her abilities, and I really liked that. And the buildup of their relationship was believable because we knew they had been friends basically their whole lives. Ava was best friends with Caden's sister, Sarah, and they lived almost next door to each other since they were young, like 5, 7, something like that. So they grew up together. But at times, I felt like I had missed things. Like, it felt like it was choppy at a certain time. Like, at one point, Ava and John are together, and something happens, and they get separated. And then the next thing is like, well, I want to go see John before. But Ava has no idea if John is alive, or if he's injured, and he's just like, I just want to go see him. But yet, how did she know he was okay? Like, and maybe that's just me being fussy, I don't know. Like, yeah, I don't know. But the ending of this book, I loved the wrap up of the story of Caden and Ava's story and the events that were happening and what was going on. I really enjoyed that. We get a wrap up for all the other characters that we follow throughout the series. And then a comment's made by Ava and Caden, and I'm kind of like, what did I miss? What's going on? And then it ends. And it's kind of like, okay, what just happened? What's going on? Like, what? I'm not used to that, especially at the very end of a series. It's like, okay, so are these two characters going to be featured in a new series? Because, I mean, it's not a cliffhanger, because it's about their personal life. I don't want to say what it is, because I don't want to give away spoilers. But I was like, okay. Didn't wrap up the way I was expecting it to wrap up. So hopefully we see these characters again. I don't know. So I rated this book 3 out of 5 because it was my least favorite of this series. Again, as I said, I don't know if it's because I had built up and was expecting for Caden's story to be so good. I could be because of the Russia component. It could be because of the ending. Like, it's kind of, or it's all of that stuff combined. Overall, though, I loved this series. Books 1, 2, and 3 were awesome. Now, I'm not saying book 4 sucked, because it didn't. I was invested on what was going on, trying to figure out what was going on. I just didn't enjoy it as much as the other 3. But I do definitely recommend this book, and I recommend Lynette Eason as an author. I do have a copy of all these reviews posted on my blog, which is cjanereed.blogspot.com. I will have it linked below in the description box. And I just want to thank you for joining me today. Have a good day. Bye.